I never thought my brother's wife would be the one trying to destroy my relationship. But here we are. My name is Alex, I'm 27, and I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone. My older brother David is 32 and his wife Ella is 34. I used to think we had a normal family. I was wrong. Let me go back to the beginning. 4 years ago, my brother's now wife Ella dated a guy named George. George was in his mid-30s back then and he was going through a rough patch. He partied hard, did drugs, and was exactly the most reliable person. Ella wanted marriage and kids, but George couldn't give her that, not with where he was in life. They broke up after 6 months and it was messy. Ella was bitter about not being able to settle him down. Then she met my brother David less than a year later. They moved fast. They got married within 6 or 7 months of meeting. So within a year and a few months, Ella went from dating George to breaking up to meeting my brother to being his wife. I never thought much of it at the time. I was just happy my brother found someone. Fast forward to 2 years ago. I met George at a mutual friend's barbecue. I didn't know who he was to Ella back then. He was charming, funny, and he seemed different from the stories I'd later hear. He told me he had been working on himself. He had quit drinking, quit drugs, and started therapy. He said he wanted to become the person he could be proud of. I fell for him hard. We started dating and I watched him transform into someone stable, kind, and fully present. He went to therapy every week. He stayed sober. He was the most genuine person I had ever met. I thought I had found my person. Then Ella found out. She was already married to my brother, but when she discovered I was dating George, she lost it. She started spreading lies. She told our entire family that George was grooming me because I was 25 and he was 36. She said he was abusing me. She claimed he was trying to turn me into an addict like he used to be. She said all sorts of nasty things. I tried to ignore it at first. I thought maybe she was just jealous, but it kept getting worse. She started posting vague, passive-aggressive things on social media. She called my mom crying, saying I was being manipulated. She tried to turn my brother against me. I remember sitting in my living room one night staring at my phone, reading a text from David. Ella says George is bad news, I'm just looking out for you. I wanted to scream. I told David the truth. George had changed. He was in therapy. He was sober. I even offered to show him proof, but David said he didn't want to get in the middle. He just wanted me to be careful. That was when I started to realize that Ella wasn't just worried about me, she was bitter. She couldn't stand that George had become the man she wanted him to be, but for me. The breaking point came at a family dinner last month. I brought George to meet my parents properly. My mom was nervous because of what Ella had said, but she agreed to give him a chance. My dad was neutral. Ella showed up without warning. David had told her not to come, but she came anyway. She walked in, saw George, and the look on her face was pure venom. She didn't say anything at first. She just sat there glaring. I tried to keep the conversation light. George was respectful, answered questions, talked about his job, his therapy. My mom started to warm up. Then Ella snapped. She leaned across the table and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "So George, are you still dealing drugs on the side, or did you just switch to dealing with my sister-in-law?" The whole room went silent. George kept his composure. He said, "I have been clean for 2 years. I am not dealing anything. I love your sister-in-law and I hope you can respect that." Ella laughed. She said he was just saying that because I was there. My dad told her to stop. My brother looked like he wanted to disappear. I stood up and said, "Ella, you need to leave. This is my family dinner and you are not welcome here with that attitude." She looked at me like I had slapped her. She stood up, grabbed her purse and said, "Fine, but when he ruins your life, don't come crying to me." Then she walked out. That night, David texted me, "I'm sorry, she's out of line. I don't know what to do." I told him I needed space from her. I didn't want her at any family events where I was present. He said he understood, but it didn't end there. Ella started calling my parents, telling them I was being brainwashed. She made up stories about George having a secret criminal record. She even implied that I had gotten pregnant on purpose to trap him, which wasn't true. I wasn't pregnant, I was just in love. My mom started questioning me. My dad told me to be careful. I felt like I was under attack from my own family. A week later, I decided I had enough. I called a family meeting at my parents' house. I invited my mom, dad, David, and Ella. I brought George. I came prepared. I had printed out George's therapy attendance records, his drug test results from his doctor, and letters from his sponsor. I had also printed out screenshots of Ella's old texts to George from 4 years ago, texts she had sent him after their breakup, begging him to take her back. I didn't want to use them, but I needed to show everyone who she really was. I started the conversation calmly. I said, "I love George, he has changed. He is not the person he was 4 years ago. And I have proof." I laid out the papers. My mom read them. My dad nodded. David looked uncomfortable. Ella just stared at the table. Then I said, "Ella, you have been lying about him. You have been lying about me. Why? Because he didn't want you, because you couldn't change him, but I could." Ella's face went red. She stood up and pointed at me. "You think you know him? You don't know what he did to me. He broke me, and now he's with you acting like a saint. It's not fair." I said, "What's not fair is you trying to destroy my life because you can't let go of a relationship that ended 4 years ago." My dad stood up and said, "Ella, I think you need to leave." David didn't say a word. Ella didn't leave quietly. She screamed at me. She called me a homewrecker. She said I had stolen George from her. She said she would never come to another family event as long as I was there. My dad told her that was fine. She wasn't welcome until she apologized. David finally spoke. He said, "Ella, we're going home." He took her by the arm and led her out. She was crying. I felt bad for a second, but then I remembered the lies she told, the way she tried to sabotage my relationship, the way she made my family doubt me. My mom hugged me after they left. She said, "I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner." My dad shook George's hand. It was the first time he had really accepted him. George was quiet. He was holding back tears. Later that night, he told me he had never felt so validated in his life. I told him I would always have his back. Now David barely talks to me. He says I humiliated his wife. I told him she humiliated herself. He says he needs time. That's fine. I'm done with Ella. My parents have banned her from family gatherings until she apologizes, which will probably never happen. I don't know if my brother and I will ever be close again, but I made my choice. I chose George, and I don't regret it. That was the first time I had to stand up to someone who thought they could control my life. I thought it would be the hardest. But as it turns out, sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you have to fight the most. I thought that was the worst of it. The family drama, the lies, the feeling of having to defend my relationship to everyone I loved. But a few months later, I came across another story that reminded me that sometimes the people closest to you, the ones you trust the most, can be the ones who try to tear you down for no reason at all. I moved to a new country when I was 11. It was hard. New school, new language, new everything. My SIL introduced me to a girl named Sarah at a neighborhood barbecue. She was the same age as me, 11, and she lived 2 streets away. We clicked immediately. We spent every weekend together, sleepovers, bike rides, shared secrets. She became my best friend. Through middle school, high school, college, we stayed close. Even when I started dating my now husband at 22, she was supportive. She came to our wedding. She cried. She held my hand when I gave birth to my daughter at 27. I thought she was my ride or die. I'm 29 now. My husband is 31. We have a 2-year-old daughter. Life was good. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a half-hour break. Sometimes I walk 5 minutes to my husband's office for a quick coffee. Sometimes I go to a cafe with coworkers. Sarah and I still talk a few times a week. She knows my schedule because I tell her casually, like, "Oh, I have to travel to the other city for work on Wednesday." That kind of thing. Last month, there was a red alert weather warning for Wednesday. A storm was coming, heavy rain, possible flooding. My work trip to the other city was canceled Tuesday night. So on Wednesday, I stayed home with my 2-year-old. My husband woke up at 6 in the morning to go check on his business, put up some flood protection, and he was back by 7:30. He made us breakfast in our pajamas. We played with our daughter. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We never left the house. We watched movies. We napped. It was a perfect lazy day. At 3 o'clock, Sarah texted me. She asked if I was home already because she heard the flooding was bad where I was supposed to travel. I texted back, "Home safe." That was it. We didn't go out until Friday. Saturday morning, Sarah and I have the same gym class. We usually grab a smoothie after, but this time she seemed off. She kept looking at me weirdly during class. After she said we needed to talk in private, we went to my car, parked in the corner of the lot. She looked nervous. She took a breath and said, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." I froze. My stomach dropped. For a split second, I felt the world tilt. But then I remembered. I remembered the rain that never came. I remembered my husband making pancakes. I remembered our daughter playing with her blocks on the living room rug. I remembered that I was there. I was home. He was with me. I asked her, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" "Yes," she said. "Absolutely sure." I asked again. "Are you 100% certain it was Wednesday?" "Yes, I saw them near the park. He was kissing a blonde woman, tall, really pretty. Your daughter was in the back seat of his car." I asked a third time. "You're sure it was the same Wednesday, the day of the red alert?" She nodded. "Yes, I saw them at about 11 in the morning." I sat there for a moment, then I said, "I was home with my husband all day Wednesday. The red alert canceled my work. He came home at 7:30. We didn't leave the house. Our daughter was with us. He didn't go anywhere near a park." Sarah's face went pale. She blinked. She said, "Oh, maybe I got the day wrong." I asked her what she thought I was supposed to do with that information. She started stammering. She said she was just trying to look out for me. She said she must have seen someone who looked like him. She said she was sorry. I didn't scream. I just looked at her and said, "You tried to break up my marriage." "For what? Why?" She started crying. She said she didn't know why. She said she felt like we were drifting apart and she thought that if something happened between me and my husband, we would spend more time together again. She wanted us to be like old times. She wanted to travel together like we used to before I had a kid. She thought that if I was a single mom, I'd need her more. I told her she needed help, professional help. I told her I couldn't be her friend anymore, she begged. She said she loved me. I said, "You don't sabotage people you love." I drove home. I told my husband. He was furious. He wanted to confront her, but I said no. I blocked her number. I blocked her on social media. It's been 2 months. I still think about it sometimes. I wonder what would have happened if I had actually been out of town that day, if she had convinced me, if I had believed her. It scares me how close I came to losing everything because of one person's jealousy. Some people will do anything to break up a happy relationship. But what happened to another woman I read about was even worse, because it came from the person who was supposed to love her most. I never thought I'd be the one telling this story. I'm 29. My husband is 31. We met in college and we were each other's first real relationship. He was handsome, kind, and I loved him with every part of me. We got married when I was 24. 2 years later, we started trying for a baby. It happened fast. Our daughter was born when I was 25. She had my husband's smile, his nose, and brown eyes. My husband and I both have blue eyes. I never thought anything of it. I have a cousin with brown eyes. My husband has a grandmother with brown eyes. It's not that unusual. But my husband started acting strange when our daughter turned 3. He became distant, cold. He started demanding to see my phone. He wouldn't tell me why. I showed him at first, but when he kept asking, I told him I wouldn't hand it over unless he explained. He shut down. He stayed in his office for hours. He stopped playing with our daughter. He stopped kissing me goodnight. I thought he was stressed about work. I asked him. He said it was nothing. Then one morning, he woke me up at 6 a.m. He was sitting on the edge of the bed. He told me he had done a paternity test on our daughter. He had swabbed her cheek while she slept. He sent it to a lab. The results came back negative. She was not his biological child. I couldn't breathe. I told him I never cheated. I told him I had only been with 2 people before him, both before college. I told him I loved him. He didn't believe me. He said the test couldn't be wrong. He said our daughter's brown eyes couldn't come from 2 blue-eyed parents. He said I had to have cheated. He told me he wanted a divorce. I spent the next week in a fog. I cried in the bathroom. I cried in my daughter's room. I called my mom. She said maybe the test was faulty, but my husband wouldn't listen. He locked himself in the bedroom. I slept in the guest room. He stopped talking to our daughter. She asked why daddy was sad. I had to make up a story. I decided I wouldn't give up. I made an appointment at a different lab. I convinced my husband to come with me. I said we would both be present this time. We would watch them swab my daughter's cheek. We would seal the sample ourselves. He agreed barely. The wait was agony. But when the results came back, they said 99.99% probability of paternity. The first test had been a mix-up at the lab. Someone else's sample was swapped. My husband cried. He apologized. He said he was so sorry. He said he didn't know why he had doubted me. He said he would make it up to me, but something had broken. I forgave him. I did, but I never forgot the way he looked at me that first morning. I never forgot how he was willing to throw away our family over a mistake. We went to therapy. It took years. Sometimes I still feel the coldness of that week. He's a good father now. He tries. But there are moments when I catch myself wondering, what if I hadn't fought for that second test? What if I had just packed my bags and left? Some lies come from outsiders. Some come from the people who are supposed to have your back. And sometimes the hardest fight is the one where you have to prove your innocence to the person you trusted most. But the next story I'm about to tell you. This one comes from a completely different angle: blood family, marriage, and a woman who couldn't stand that her ex got his life together for someone else. I never thought I'd end up in the middle of a love triangle I didn't even know existed. My name is not important. I'm 27, my fiancé is George, 38. My older brother is David, 36, and my sister-in-law is Ella, 34. Sounds simple, right? It's not. 4 years ago, George briefly dated Ella. They were together for 6 months. Ella wanted marriage and kids immediately. George wasn't ready. He was going through a rough patch, partying, doing drugs, being unreliable. He was the man he is today. They ended badly because Ella couldn't force him to settle down. She was furious. She wanted a ring, a house, a white picket fence, and George wasn't that guy, so she left. A few months later, she met my brother David. They got married 6 or 7 months after that. So in the span of just over a year, Ella dated George, broke up, met my brother, and became my sister-in-law. I didn't think anything of it at the time. My brother was happy. She seemed fine. I had no idea who George even was. Then I met George 2 years ago. I was 25. He was 36. We met through mutual friends. There was no drama, no weird history until I found out he used to date Ella. I was shocked. I told my brother. He shrugged and said it was in the past. He didn't care, but Ella. She cared a lot. When she found out George and I were dating seriously, she lost her mind. I mean, she was already married to my brother. She had her own life. But the fact that George was now sober, going to therapy, and genuinely in love with me, that broke something inside her. She started spreading lies. She told everyone George was grooming me. I was 25. He was 36. That's an age gap, sure, but not grooming. She said he was abusing me. She said he was trying to turn me into an addict. She said he was only pretending to be clean and that he would ruin my life. None of it was true. George had been sober for over a year by then. He went to meetings. He had a sponsor. He was the most stable partner I'd ever had, but Ella didn't stop. She called my parents. She told them I was in danger. My mom was scared. My dad was angry. They had a family meeting without me. My brother David sat there while his wife accused my boyfriend of being a predator. David didn't defend me. He just stayed quiet. I found out about the meeting from my cousin who was there. I was furious. I called my mom and said, "Did you even ask me? Did you check if any of this was true?" She said she was just worried. I said, "You believed her over your own daughter." She didn't have an answer. Then things escalated. Ella started telling people that George had got me pregnant and was trying to trap me. I wasn't pregnant. She said George had a secret drug stash in our apartment. I invited my parents over to search the place. They found nothing. She said George had hit me. I showed them my arms. No bruises, no marks, nothing. But the worst part, Ella started telling my brother that I was only dating George to hurt her, that I was doing it on purpose. She said I was jealous of her marriage. My brother started to believe her. He stopped talking to me. He said I was being disrespectful to his wife. I said, "She's lying about everything, David. Why can't you see that?" He said, "She's my wife. I trust her." I didn't know what to do. I thought about breaking up with George just to end the drama. But George was the best thing that ever happened to me. He was kind. He was patient. He held me when I cried about my family. He said, if you need to walk away to save your relationship with your brother, I'll understand. I told him no. I wasn't going to let Ella win. Then the proposal happened. George proposed to me at a park near my parents' house. It was beautiful. He got down on one knee. I said yes. We were engaged. Ella's ex, someone she dated before George, heard about it through the grapevine. I barely knew this guy. We had met maybe twice. He sent me a Facebook message congratulating me. Then he said, "You're lucky George got his act together. Ella always said he was broken. I guess she was wrong." I didn't reply. Somehow Ella found out he messaged me. She accused me of flirting with her ex. She told my brother I was trying to seduce her old boyfriends. My brother came to my apartment and screamed at me. He said I was destroying the family. I said I didn't do anything. He messaged me to congratulate me. David didn't believe me. That was when everything changed. My parents had had enough. They sat down with David and Ella. They said, "We've checked everything Ella has claimed. None of it is true. Either she gets help for her jealousy or we're cutting her off." Ella cried. She said we were all against her. She said I was the villain. My brother stood up for her again. So my parents banned Ella from family events. They told David he could come alone, but Ella wasn't welcome. David chose her. He stopped coming to Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays. It broke my mom's heart. I felt guilty. I asked my mom if I should apologize just to fix things. She said, "No, you have nothing to apologize for. She tried to ruin your life. She lied about abuse and addiction. That's unforgivable." George and I got married in a small ceremony. My brother didn't come. My parents were there. It was beautiful, but there's always a shadow. I know Ella still talks about me. I know she tells people I stole her ex and turned her family against her. The truth is she did it to herself. She couldn't stand that George got better for me. She couldn't stand that he loved me in a way he never loved her. And instead of moving on, she tried to burn everything down. Some people can't handle seeing someone they rejected become someone else's happy ending. And they'll lie, cheat, and destroy to make sure nobody else gets what they couldn't have. I never thought my best friend would try to destroy my marriage. But here we are. My name doesn't matter. I'm 29. My husband is 31. My best friend is Sarah, also 29. We've known each other since I was 11. I had just moved to a new country with my family. My sister-in-law introduced us. Sarah was my first friend in a strange place. We grew up together. We shared secrets. We went to each other's weddings. She was the godmother to my 2-year-old daughter, or so I thought. Last week started normal. I work in an office from 9 to 2. My husband runs his own business. I usually take my 30-minute break to grab a second breakfast at a cafe near his office. Sometimes I go to his place if it's close. We have a good routine. Sarah and I talk a few times a week. She knows my schedule. I mentioned casually that I had to travel for work on Wednesday. It was just a day trip to a neighboring city. Tuesday night, a red alert came in. Severe weather, flash floods. My work trip got canceled. I stayed home Wednesday with our daughter. My husband left at 6 in the morning to make sure his business was shut down and set up flood protection. He was back by 7:30. We made breakfast together. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We stayed inside all day. Thursday too, just the three of us watching cartoons, eating snacks, napping on the couch. Friday morning I went to the gym. Sarah and I go to the same class. She pulled me aside after. Her face was serious. She said we needed to talk in private, so we went out to my car. She sat in the passenger seat, turned to me and said, "I saw your husband on Wednesday with a woman. They were making out. Your kid was in the car." I froze. For a second my heart stopped. But then my brain kicked in. I remembered Wednesday. I remembered every single minute. My husband was home. He was making pancakes. He was playing with our daughter on the living room floor. I was right there. I asked her, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" She said yes. I asked again. "This Wednesday, the red alert day?" She said yes again. She said she saw them around 11 in the morning. A gorgeous blonde, a Barbie doll type, making out in his car with our daughter in the back seat. She described the whole scene. She said she was driving by and recognized his car. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, "Sarah, I was home with him that whole day. He never left." We didn't go anywhere until Friday. Her face went blank. She said, "No, I'm sure I saw it." I said, "I'm telling you I was there. I was working from home. You texted me at 3 that day asking if I was home safe from my trip. I told you I was already home, remember?" She started stammering. "Maybe I got the day wrong. Maybe it was another day." I said, "You confirmed it was Wednesday 3 times. You said it was the red alert day." She had no answer. She just sat there. I asked her why she would say that. She said she was just looking out for me. She said she must have been mistaken, but the way she said it flat, rehearsed, I knew it wasn't a mistake. I drove home shaking. I told my husband. He was shocked, then angry, then he just held me. We couldn't figure out why Sarah would lie. She had nothing to gain. She wasn't interested in my husband. She had her own boyfriend. She had a good job. We never argued. I called her that night. I said, "You need to tell me the truth." "Why did you say that?" She said, "I told you I was mistaken." I said, "You weren't mistaken. You were specific. You described everything. You knew we were home. You texted me. You knew I wasn't traveling." "So why?" She went silent. Then she said, "I don't know. I guess I was jealous." "Jealous of what?" "My marriage, my kid, my husband who actually helps at home." She said she felt like I had everything and she didn't. She said she thought if she could break us up, I would have more time to hang out with her, like we were in high school, like my family was an inconvenience to her social life. I hung up. I didn't say another word. I blocked her number. I told our mutual friends the truth. Most of them believed me, some didn't. A few said I was overreacting, that she made a stupid mistake and I should forgive her. I told them she tried to destroy my marriage, she wanted me to leave my husband, she wanted my daughter to grow up without a father in the home. That's not a mistake, that's sabotage. I haven't spoken to her since. My daughter still asks about Auntie Sarah. I don't know what to say, I just say she moved away. It's a lie, but it's easier than explaining that someone who loved us tried to break us apart for no reason other than jealousy. Some people can't stand to see you happy. They'll pretend to be your friend while sharpening the knife. And when you catch them, they'll blame it on a mistake. But a mistake is forgetting an appointment. A mistake is burning dinner. A mistake is not fabricating a story about your best friend's husband cheating with a blonde during a flood warning. That was the last time I trusted someone just because we had history. I thought I had seen betrayal, but what happened next destroyed everything I believed about love. My name is not important. I'm 29. My husband is 31. We have a 5-year-old daughter with brown eyes. Both of us have blue eyes. That simple genetic fact almost tore our family apart. We met in college. He was handsome, kind, the kind of guy who remembered your coffee order and your mom's birthday. We dated for 3 years before he proposed. We got married in a small church with our families crying in the front row. We waited 2 years before trying for a baby. When our daughter was born, he held her for 3 hours straight. He cried, I cried. The nurse cried, it was perfect. For 5 years it was perfect. Then 3 months ago he changed. He started coming home late from work. He stopped kissing me goodbye. He stopped playing with our daughter. He would sit in his office for hours, door locked, laptop glowing. I asked him what was wrong, he said nothing. I asked if I had done something, he said no. I asked if he was sick, he said he was fine, but he wasn't fine. He started demanding to see my phone. He would pick it up off the nightstand while I was sleeping. I woke up once at 3 a.m. and he was scrolling through my messages. I asked him what he was doing. He said he was just checking the time. I knew that was a lie. I showed him my phone anyway because I had nothing to hide. But after the third time I told him no. I said, you need to tell me why you're doing this, otherwise I'm not handing it over. He got cold. He stopped sleeping in our bed. He stopped talking to our daughter the same way. He would look at her like she was a stranger. I started sleeping in her room just to feel close to someone who still loved me. The morning it all fell apart, he came into the kitchen. I was making pancakes. Our daughter was drawing at the table. He put a piece of paper in front of me, a lab report, a paternity test. It said there was a 0% chance he was her biological father. I couldn't breathe. I said, where did you get this? He said, I did it myself. I sent in a sample from her hairbrush. The results came back negative. I said, that's impossible. She's yours. I never cheated on you, not once, not ever. He said, then explain the eyes. We both have blue eyes. She has brown. That's not possible unless there's another father. I told him about genetics. I told him about recessive genes. I told him that 2 blue-eyed parents can have a brown-eyed child if there's a hidden dominant gene somewhere in the family tree. I told him it's rare, but it happens. He didn't believe me. He said I was lying. I started crying. I begged him to do another test, a real one in a clinic with a doctor. He said he didn't need another test. He said he already knew the truth. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just stood there in my kitchen holding a spatula, watching my husband look at our daughter like she was evidence of my betrayal. He locked himself in our bedroom that night. I slept in my daughter's room. I held her while she slept and I cried into her hair. I didn't know what to do. I started researching. I made a list of things I wanted to do, another paternity test at a different lab, a blood test, a genetic consultation. I texted it to him. He didn't reply. The next day my parents came over. I had called my mom. I was hysterical. She told my dad. They drove 2 hours to our house. My mother held me while my father talked to my husband. My father said, you need to get a DNA test done by a real clinic, a simple cheek swab. If you love your wife, you will do this. My husband said, I already know. My father said, you know nothing. You're throwing away your family because you read a biology book. It was tense. My husband agreed to do the test, but he made it clear he was only doing it to prove he was right. We went to the clinic a week later. The technician swabbed his cheek, swabbed my daughter's cheek, and swabbed my cheek. The results took 10 days, 10 days of silence, 10 days of my husband sleeping in the spare room. 10 days of my daughter asking why daddy doesn't read her bedtime stories anymore. When the results came, I opened them alone. I was shaking. I read the first page, 99.99% probability. He was the father. I drove to his office. Walked in, I put the paper on his desk. He read it. His face went white. He said, this can't be right. I said, it is right. She is yours. She has always been yours. He said, but the eyes. I said, the eyes don't matter. She has your smile. She has your laugh. She has your stubbornness. And she has brown eyes because somewhere in your family tree or mine, there's a brown-eyed grandparent we forgot about. That's it. That's all it is. He started crying. He grabbed my hands. He said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. I didn't say it was okay because it wasn't okay. He had spent months treating me like a liar, treating our daughter like a stranger, locking himself in his office, refusing to talk to me, demanding my phone, accusing me of the worst betrayal possible. And all of it was because he didn't understand basic genetics. I told him we needed counseling. He agreed. We found a therapist who specialized in marital trust issues. We went twice a week for 2 months. He admitted he had been paranoid. He said he had been reading online forums about paternity fraud and convinced himself it was happening to him. He said he got obsessed. He couldn't stop. He spent hours reading horror stories and he convinced himself our daughter didn't look like him even though she does. She has his nose, his hairline, his stubborn streak. It took months to rebuild. My daughter still asks why daddy was mean for a while. I don't know what to tell her. I just say he was sick and now he's better. I still sleep in her room sometimes. Not because I need to, but because I remember the nights I held her and cried thinking I was going to lose my family. I remember the fear, I remember the shame. I didn't do anything wrong, I was faithful, I was honest, and I almost lost everything because my husband trusted a mail-order paternity test more than he trusted me. We're better now, not perfect, better. He takes her to school every morning. He reads her stories again. He holds my hand when we watch TV. But there's a scar. There's a part of me that wonders if he'll ever really believe me again. If the next time he gets a bad idea in his head, he'll spend months tearing us apart instead of talking to me. I don't know if that scar ever fully heals. But I know one thing, I never cheated, I never would. And that test was wrong, he was wrong. And our daughter is his in every way that matters. Some people let fear destroy what love built. I almost lost my husband to a lie he told himself. And I'm still not sure if we're going to be okay. But we're trying, that's all I can do. I thought I had seen the worst of betrayal from the people I loved. But then my best friend tried to destroy my marriage for reasons I still don't fully understand. My name is not important, I'm 29, so is Sarah. She was my best friend since I was 11 years old. My family had just moved to a new country. I didn't know anyone. I didn't speak the language well. My now sister-in-law introduced us. Sarah was the first person who made me feel like I belonged somewhere. We did everything together. School projects, sleepovers, first crushes, heartbreaks. She was at my wedding. She held my hand when I gave birth to my son. She called herself Auntie Sarah. I trusted her with everything. We grew up and grew apart in the normal ways. We still shared some friends, but we had different groups for different things. She liked going out. I liked staying home with my husband and our 2-year-old. She traveled for fun. I traveled for work, it was fine. That's what adulthood does to friendships, you drift. But I still loved her, I still texted her every week, I still told her about my life. I work in an office from 9 to 2, I have a 30-minute break that I usually take for a second breakfast. Sometimes I walk to my husband's office, it's 5 minutes away. Sometimes I go to a cafe, sometimes I mention to Sarah if I have to travel for work during the week. Just casual stuff, nothing important. Last week I had a work trip scheduled for Wednesday. I was supposed to travel to a city about 2 hours away. But Tuesday night there was a red alert about the weather, heavy flooding, the roads were closing, my work thing got cancelled. I stayed home with my 2-year-old. My husband went out at 6 in the morning to make sure his business was closed and to put up some flood protection. By 7:30 he was back home making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We stayed inside all day, we played with our son, we watched cartoons, we made lunch together, we took a nap, it was boring and perfect. At 3 in the afternoon, Sarah sent me a text. She asked if I was home already because it was flooding where I was supposed to be traveling. I texted back, home safe. That was it, we didn't go out until Friday, the roads were bad, we just stayed in. Saturday morning, Sarah and I go to the same gym class, we always say hi before and after. That Saturday she told me we needed to talk in private, she seemed nervous. Her hands were shaking, I thought something terrible had happened. Maybe her parents were sick, maybe she lost her job. We went to my car, we sat in the front seats. The windows fogged up, she turned to me and said, on Wednesday I saw your husband with a woman, they were making out and your kid was in the car. I froze, my brain stopped working, I couldn't process the words, then I remembered. Wednesday I was home, my husband was home, we were together all day in our house with our son. I asked her, are you sure it was this Wednesday? She said, yes. I asked again, are you 100% sure it was this past Wednesday? She said, yes, I saw them, they were kissing. Your son was in the back seat, he was crying. I asked a third time, Sarah, please, are you absolutely certain it was Wednesday? She said, yes, I'm sure, it was around 11 in the morning. I was driving past the park and I saw his car. I saw him with a blonde woman, she looked like a Barbie doll, they were making out, I saw it. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just looked at her and said, I was home on Wednesday, my husband was home, we were together, the roads were closed, the flood alert was active, we didn't leave the house, we didn't go anywhere near the park. Her face changed, she got defensive. She said maybe it was a different day. I said, you said Wednesday, you confirmed it 3 times. She said, I don't know, I'm just trying to help you, I saw something, I thought you should know. I asked her for proof, a photo, a video, a screenshot of a text. She said she didn't take anything. She said she was too shocked. I asked her why she didn't call me immediately. She said she wanted to tell me in person. I told her I needed to go. I drove home. I told my husband everything. He was furious. He said, she's lying. Why would she lie? I didn't know. I still don't know. He called her. I heard him on the phone. He said, Sarah, I was home with my wife and son on Wednesday. I didn't leave the house. I didn't kiss anyone. Why are you telling my wife this? She stammered, she made excuses. She said she must have been confused. She said maybe she saw someone who looked like him. She said she was just trying to protect me. He said, you tried to destroy my marriage, that's what you did. She started crying. She said she was sorry. She said she didn't mean to cause problems. I took the phone. I said, Sarah, I've known you since I was 11. I trusted you with my life. Why would you make up a lie like this? She didn't answer. She just kept apologizing. I haven't spoken to her since. I blocked her number. I blocked her social media. I told our mutual friends what happened. Some of them believed me. Some of them said I was overreacting. They said she made a mistake. They said she was just looking out for me. I said she looked me in the eye and told me my husband was cheating on me with my son in the car. She confirmed it 3 times. She described the woman. She described the car. She described the park. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. I still don't know why she did it. Maybe she was jealous. Maybe she wanted me to leave my husband so we could hang out more. Maybe she wanted me to be a single mom so she could have more time with me. I don't know, I'll probably never know. But I know this, you can love someone for 18 years and still not know who they really are. Sarah was my best friend. She watched me fall in love, get married, have a baby. And then she tried to burn it all down for no reason I can understand. It's been a month. I still think about her sometimes. I wonder if she's okay. I wonder if she regrets it. I wonder if she's told anyone the truth. But I don't reach out, I can't, because even if she apologized 1,000 times, I would never trust her again. Some friendships end with a fight, some end with silence. Mine ended with a lie and I'm still standing. My marriage is still standing. My son is still happy, we're okay. But I'll never forget sitting in that car, watching my best friend's face as she told me a story she knew wasn't true. I'll never forget the cold feeling in my chest. I'll never forget realizing that the person I trusted most in the world had tried to destroy the life I built. I don't scream anymore. I don't cry. I just move forward. That's all I can do. I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. But nothing prepared me for the day my husband told me our daughter wasn't his. My name is not important. I'm 29. My husband is 31. We've been together since college. He was the love of my life, handsome, kind, funny. We got married young, but we were ready. We wanted a family. We tried for a baby. We were so happy when I got pregnant. Our daughter was born 5 years ago. She has my smile and his nose, or so I thought. These past few months, he became someone I didn't recognize, cold, distant, suspicious. He started demanding to see my phone. I showed him at first. I thought he was just stressed from work. But he wouldn't tell me why he wanted to look. He just kept asking. And every time I handed it over, he scrolled through my messages, my call log, my photos. He never found anything because there was nothing to find. I eventually told him I wouldn't show him any more unless he explained. He got angry. He said I was hiding something. I wasn't. I never cheated. I've only ever been with 2 people before him, both before we met. There is no other potential father for our daughter. We were married. We were actively trying. I would never, ever cheat. But he didn't believe me. He started staying in his office for hours. He wouldn't talk to me. He was distant with our daughter too, she noticed. She asked me why Daddy was sad. I didn't know what to tell her. I told her he was just tired. Then this morning he accused me. He said he'd done a paternity test. He said it came back negative. He said our daughter wasn't his. I didn't understand. I asked how. He said he'd used one of those home DNA kits. He said he did it because our daughter has brown eyes and we both have blue. I stared at him. I said, that's not how genetics works. 2 blue-eyed parents can have a brown-eyed child. It's rare, but it's possible. There's something called incomplete dominance. It's basic biology. He didn't listen. He said, I don't care. The test says she's not mine. You cheated. I want you out of the house. I didn't leave. I started crying. I told him I never cheated. I begged him to believe me. He locked himself in our bedroom. I was left in the hallway. I went to our daughter's room. She was sleeping. I sat on the floor and cried. I called my mom. She said to get a lawyer. She said to get another test. She said not to let him push me out. I didn't want a lawyer. I wanted my husband back. I wanted my family to go back to normal. Later that evening, he came out of the room. We talked. I told him I wanted to get a more accurate test. I told him I would do anything to prove my innocence. I asked him to hug me. He did, but it felt hollow. He said he still loved our daughter. He said he wouldn't keep me out of the house for now. But he didn't say he believed me. I stayed up all night researching. I learned that home paternity tests can be faulty. I learned that eye color is controlled by multiple genes. I learned that 2 blue-eyed parents can absolutely have a brown-eyed child. I printed out articles. I highlighted the relevant parts. I showed them to him the next morning. He glanced at them. He said, I don't know, I just don't know. I said, please, let's get a proper test. Let's go to a lab. Let's do it together. He agreed. We went that afternoon. He watched them take the swab from our daughter's cheek. He watched them take mine. He took his own. The technician said it would take a week. That week was the longest of my life. He barely spoke to me. He slept on the couch. He wouldn't let me touch him. Our daughter kept asking why Daddy was sleeping on the sofa. I said he had a bad dream. I called my sister every night. She told me I was being gaslit. She said he was projecting. She said I should prepare for the worst. I didn't want to hear it. I still loved him. I still believed we could fix this. The results came back on a Thursday. I opened the envelope myself. It said 99.99% probability of paternity. He is her father. I ran to him. I showed him the paper. He stared at it. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he started crying. He said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I asked him why he did it. He said he'd been reading things online. He said he saw a forum where people talked about paternity fraud. He said he got scared. He said he couldn't get the thought out of his head. He said he didn't know how to stop it. I told him he broke my trust. I told him he hurt our daughter. I told him he let paranoia destroy our family for a week. He said he would do anything to make it right. He said he would go to therapy. He said he would never doubt me again. I don't know if I believe him. I'm still here. I'm still trying, but something changed. I look at him and I see a man who is willing to throw away everything because of a random website and a faulty test. I look at my daughter and I see her father's eyes, blue just like his, and I wonder if he'll ever see her the same way again. We're in couples counseling now. He goes to individual therapy. He's trying, I'm trying. But I can't forget the look on his face when he told me she wasn't his. I can't forget the coldness in his voice. I can't forget sitting on the floor of her room, holding her stuffed bear, wondering if my marriage was over. I still don't know if we're going to be okay. But I'm not leaving yet. I'm fighting for my family. I'm fighting for my daughter. And I'm praying that someday he'll realize that trust isn't about a test. It's about choosing to believe in the person you married. The technician sealed the samples in front of us. I watched her label each one, my hands shaking. My husband stood 2 feet away, arms crossed, not looking at me. He hadn't touched me in days. The technician said the results would take 5 to 7 business days. She handed us a receipt with a case number. I held it like it was a lifeline. That week, I barely slept. I'd lie in bed next to my daughter, listening to her breathe and wonder how my life had turned into this. My husband slept on the couch. He didn't say good night. He didn't say good morning. He just existed in the same house like a ghost. I made breakfast for our daughter, packed her lunch, took her to school. I went to work. I came home. I cooked dinner. He ate in his office. She asked why daddy was eating alone. I said he had a lot of work. I called my mom every night. She told me to stop being a doormat. She said I should pack a bag and leave. She said he didn't deserve me. I told her I wasn't leaving until I had the truth in my hands. She sighed and said, fine, but start looking at apartments just in case. I couldn't, I still believed in him. I still believed we could get through this. I printed out more articles about eye color genetics. I highlighted the parts about brown-eyed children from blue-eyed parents. I left them on the kitchen counter. He didn't touch them. On day 4, I came home from work and found him sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers. I asked what they were. He said he'd been looking up paternity fraud statistics. He said he found websites that claimed 1 in 10 fathers is raising a child that isn't theirs. I said, those websites are lying. They're run by men who hate women. He said, maybe, but maybe not. I wanted to scream. I didn't. I just said, our daughter is yours, you'll see. Day 6. I got a voicemail from the lab. The results were ready. They said they'd email them and also mail a hard copy. I checked my email every 5 minutes for the next 3 hours. Nothing. I checked spam. Nothing. I called the lab. The woman said they'd been sent at 2:14 p.m. I refreshed again. There it was. I opened it with my eyes half shut. 99.99% probability. He was the father. I started crying right there in the living room. My daughter ran over and asked why I was sad. I said, I'm not sad, baby. I'm happy. Daddy loves you so much. I called my husband. He was at work. I said, come home now. He said he couldn't. I said, the results are here. He's the father. Our daughter is yours. There was silence. Then he said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He came through the door pale as milk. I showed him the email. He read it 3 times. Then he dropped to his knees and started sobbing. He said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I did. I don't know why I did this. I knelt down next to him. I didn't touch him. I said, you broke my heart. You broke our daughter's heart, even if she doesn't know it yet. You let strangers on the internet convince you that I was a liar, that I was a cheater, that our daughter wasn't yours. How do I ever trust you again? He didn't have an answer. He just kept crying. I made him call a therapist that day. I found one who specialized in couples counseling and anxiety disorders. The first appointment was 2 days later. We sat in a small office with beige walls and a box of tissues. The therapist asked why we were there. My husband talked for 20 minutes. He told her about the forums he'd been reading. He told her about the test. He told her about the week of silence. I sat there and listened. When he was done, the therapist asked me how I felt. I said, I feel like I don't know who I married. She nodded. She said, trust is a fragile thing. It can be rebuilt, but it takes time, and it takes consistent action from the person who broke it. She looked at my husband. She said, you need to understand the magnitude of what you did. You accused your wife of infidelity based on a home test and a misunderstanding of genetics. You isolated her. You withheld affection. You created an environment of fear and suspicion. That is not love. That is control. He started crying again. He said, I know, I'll do anything. I wanted to believe him. I still do. That was 3 months ago. We're still in therapy. He goes alone too. He stopped reading those websites. He deleted his Reddit account. He tells me he loves me every day. He hugs our daughter more than he ever did. He reads her stories. He took her to the park last Saturday. I watched them from the bench and I saw my daughter laugh and I saw him smile, and for a second I thought maybe we were okay. But at night when he's asleep, I lie awake. I replay that week in my head. I remember the coldness in his voice. I remember the look on his face when he said our daughter wasn't his. I remember sitting on the floor of her room, holding her stuffed bear, wondering if my life was over.